Some cars change the world, others just make you ask, what were they thinking? Welcome to the weird, wonderful underbelly of the 60s and 70s, an era when automotive dreams ran wild and sometimes straight off a cliff. Tonight, we're firing up of the strangest, most forgotten cars to ever burn rubber, blow mines, or just break down on the side of the highway. Buckle up, you're about to meet the misfits Detroit would rather you forget. 1961 Amphicar 770. Picture this. You're cruising down Main Street in a baby blue convertible, and suddenly, instead of turning left, you drive straight into the lake. The Amphicar 770 promised the best of both worlds, half car, half boat, all optimism. Built in West Germany and sold mainly in the U.S., this swimming car used a Triumph Herald engine to push out a modest 43 horsepower, whether on land or water. With two rear-mounted propellers and a hull-shaped underbelly, it could hit 7 knots afloat and 70 mph on the road, hence the name. President Lyndon Johnson reportedly loved scaring guests by driving into his Texas ranch lake, shouting that his brakes had failed. In truth, the Amphicar handled like a soggy shopping cart, rusted easily, and leaked with alarming regularity. Its steering was more suggestion than command, especially when you hit the water and prayed you'd make it to shore. Yet its goofy spirit, pastel colors, and sheer audacity have made the Amphicar an unlikely cult classic. Fewer than 4,000 were ever made, but their legend endures, a testament to an era when innovation meant never asking if you should, only if you could. 1962 Peel P50. It's the smallest production car ever made, and somehow that's only the second weirdest thing about it. Built on the Isle of Man for just a few short years, the Peel P50 looked more like a motorized phone booth than a car. 3 wheels, 1 headlight, 1 door, and room for exactly 1 adult or 2 small children if you weren't picky about comfort or legality. Powered by a 49cc engine putting out 4.2 horsepower, it topped out at a hair-raising 38 mph on a flat road with the wind at your back. There was no reverse gear. To back up, you'd hop out, grab the handle, and physically drag the 130-pound car wherever you wanted it. Commuting in the Peel was equal parts hilarious and humiliating, and parking was more like storage. Only about 50 were built, most of which disappeared into British rain and legend. Yet, when Top Gear's Jeremy Clarkson drove one through BBC hallways, a new generation fell in love with its absurdity. The Peel P50 is the automotive equivalent of a dare, proof that sometimes less really is less, but unforgettable all the same. 1965 Chrysler Turbine Car. Imagine firing up your car in the morning and it sounds like a jet engine. In 1963, Chrysler handed 203 Americans the keys to their wildest experiment, a family sedan powered by a turbine engine, not a piston. The Chrysler Turbine Car could run on anything from gasoline to tequila, or even Chanel No. 5, according to rumors. The whirring, whistling engine promised fewer moving parts and almost no need for oil changes. But reality wasn't so smooth. The car's throttle lagged. Its exhaust ran hot enough to melt bumpers, and it guzzled fuel with gleeful abandon. Emissions were cleaner, but the cost was astronomical, and the car sounded like a taxiing jet at every stoplight. Chrysler, facing tightening emissions laws and a skeptical public, scrapped the project. Of the original 55 cars left, only 9 escaped the crusher. The rest were destroyed, leaving the turbine car as both relic and cautionary tale, proof that sometimes tomorrow never quite arrives. 1970 Marcos Mantis M70. If you ever wanted a car that looked like a spaceship designed by madmen, the Marcos Mantis M70 is your answer. This British sports coupe, launched in 1970, defied all conventions of beauty and logic. Imagine a car with a nose so long and angular it looked like it could harpoon traffic, pop-up headlights that never quite lined up, and a roofline so high you could comfortably wear a top hat inside, assuming you wanted to be seen in it. The Mantis M70 was powered by a solid Triumph straight 6, giving it genuine sports car credentials on paper, but the real story was always the styling. Reviewers at the time were merciless, likening its design to the result of a late-night dare with rulers and geometry sets. Driving one was a unique experience, but few got the chance. Marcos only built 32 before realizing that bold doesn't always mean beautiful or marketable. Today, the Mantis M70 is the stuff of legend at car shows, beloved for its audacity and its refusal to fit any mold. For collectors, its extreme rarity and outrageous design are exactly why it's so unforgettable, a rolling testament to the risks and rewards of thinking way, way outside the box. 1973 Bricklin SV1. Think of the Bricklin SV1 as the DeLorean's oddball Canadian cousin, only with more ambition and even more quirks. Dreamed up by American entrepreneur Malcolm Bricklin in the mid-1970s, the SV1, short for Safety Vehicle 1, was marketed as the world's safest sports car. It came packed with innovations, energy-absorbing bumpers, a full roll cage, and those iconic gull-wing doors that looked futuristic until they got stuck, which happened more than owners would admit. The car's body was made from acrylic bonded to fiberglass, which sounded revolutionary but turned out to be a nightmare for reliability. Panels warped, finishes cracked, and color inconsistencies plagued the production line. Under the hood, buyers got a choice between AMC and Ford V8s, so performance was at least decent, but build quality and ballooning costs spelled disaster, and the Bricklin Motor Company folded after producing just 2,900 cars. Still, the SV1's fearless blend of style and safety made it a cult favorite among collectors. Its looks are wild, its story even wilder, a bright cautionary footnote in automotive history that proves big dreams don't always result in big success, but they sure do make for unforgettable cars. 1970 Citroen M35. If you want a taste of Citroen's signature weirdness, look no further than the M35. This oddball coupe was never meant for mass production. Instead, it was handed out to select special customers in the late 1960s for real-world testing. On the surface, it looked like a shrunken two-door Ami, quirky, boxy, and unmistakably French. But the real shock came under the hood, where Citroën installed a single-rotor Wankel rotary engine. It was lightweight, eager to rev, and impressively smooth for its size, but it also came with a laundry list of quirks. The rotary drank oil almost as fast as fuel and proved notoriously finicky, with owners reporting breakdowns, overheating, and odd maintenance rituals. Citroën tracked every mile, gathering data and tweaking the design, but in the end, only 267 M35s were ever built. When the experiment ended, Citroën recalled and scrapped most cars, yet a handful escaped destruction, proudly bearing prototype badges as proof of their strange heritage. Today, those survivors are cherished by rotary engine fanatics and Citroën collectors alike, celebrated as one of the boldest, weirdest leaps into the automotive unknown. 1968 Marcos Mini Marcos. If you've ever imagined a Mini Cooper after a wild night out, a little lopsided, oddly shaped, but brimming with confidence, you've pictured the Mini Marcos. Born as a kit car in the mid-1960s, the Mini Marcos took the humble Austin Mini's guts and dropped them into a peculiar, low-slung fiberglass body that was part race car, part cartoon jelly bean. It was lighter, faster, and weirder than anything else on the road, instantly grabbing the attention of the unconventional crowd. The real legend began at the 1966 24 Hours of Le Mans, when a lone Mini Marcos soldiered on to the finish after all the mighty Fords and Ferraris fell away, a moment of triumph for underdogs and tinkerers everywhere. But while the race car had its moment, the road-going Mini Marcos was a mixed bag. It was cramped, noisy, and offered build quality that varied from quirky to questionable, since most were assembled by enthusiastic owners in their own garages. Ownership of the company changed hands so often that each new version brought its own eccentric tweaks, making every Mini Marcos just a little different from the last. Yet despite its flaws, or maybe because of them, the Mini Marcos endures as a cult favorite, a reminder that even the strangest ideas can make a splash and sometimes, just sometimes, beat the giants at their own game. 1974 Volkswagen SP2. Volkswagen's SP2 is the classic story of a car with the looks of a champion and the heart of an underdog. Created by VW's Brazilian division in the early 1970s, the SP2 was designed to give local car enthusiasts something to brag about, a sleek, sporty coupe to rival Europe's best. On the outside, it looked like it belonged on the Riviera, low-slung, elegantly sculpted, with curves that echoed Porsche's finest. But pop the rear deck and the illusion faltered. There sat a 1.7-liter air-cooled four-cylinder, lifted straight from the humble Beetle, producing a modest 75 horsepower on a good day. On Brazilian roads, that was just enough to get by, but against the SP2's exotic looks, it was a letdown. Critics with typical Brazilian humor dubbed it sem potência, or without power. Still, what the SP2 lacked in speed, it made up for in sheer style. It was rare, mysterious, and unmistakably cool, a car you bought because you wanted to be seen, not because you wanted to win a drag race. Production barely crossed 10,000 units, most of which stayed in Brazil and quietly slipped into obscurity as the years rolled on. Today, the SP2 is a collector's delight, a cult classic prized for its rarity and jaw-dropping design, a true oddball that reminds us beauty sometimes really is only skin deep. 1967 Matra M530. When it comes to oddball French cars, the Matra M530 is in a league of its own. Born from the minds of aerospace engineers at Matra, this late 1960s creation looked ready for a moon mission. Its lines were sharp, its proportions downright peculiar, and its design unlike anything else on the road. The M530 packed a mid-mounted Ford V4 engine, pop-up headlights, a futuristic glass hatchback, and even removable Targa roof panels, features that wouldn't become mainstream for decades. Matra pitched it as the car of the future for families, but the execution was, let's say, uniquely French. The back seats were barely usable, the handling was unpredictable, and the unconventional engineering left many mechanics scratching their heads. Still, the M530's spaceship styling and clever innovations drew a small but loyal following. About 9,600 units rolled off the line before Matra decided to try something different, leaving the M530 to become a cult classic for dreamers and design geeks. Today, spotting a Matra M530 is like finding a UFO at a car show, rare, mysterious, and sure to draw a crowd of curious onlookers. For its fans, the M530 isn't just a car, it's proof that when you throw out the rulebook, you might not please everyone, but you'll never be forgotten. 1973 Reliant Robin. Britain's Reliant Robin is proof that sometimes the strangest cars leave the most lasting impressions. Launched in 1973, the Robin's claim to fame was its three-wheel design, which meant you could drive it on a motorcycle license and enjoy rock-bottom road taxes. For cash-strapped families across the UK, it was the promise of car ownership without the usual expense, room for a very brave family, a feathery fiberglass shell, and an engine just big enough to get you from A to B. Of course, B was always a gamble. The Robin's narrow front track and light rear meant it was infamously prone to tipping over on corners, a trait gleefully lampooned by shows like Top Gear. But despite the laughs and the mishaps, the Robin developed a loyal following. Over 100,000 were sold in various forms, and for many, it was their first taste of automotive independence. These days, the Reliant Robin is more likely to be spotted in a classic car parade or a comedy sketch than on a motorway. But its legacy endures. A cheerful oddball, unashamedly different, and living proof that a little ingenuity and a lot of nerve can go a long way, even on three wheels. 1969 Subaru 360. Before Subaru was making rally legends, it was quietly importing one of the quirkiest cars America had ever seen, the Subaru 360. Launched in the U.S. in the late 1960s, the 360 was a world away from the roaring muscle cars of the time. It sported a bubbly, bug-eyed design, a featherweight body, and an 18-horsepower two-stroke engine that barely sipped fuel, but also barely moved the car. With plastic side windows and a total weight under 1,000 pounds, it was said you could almost pick it up and carry it if you got stuck. Reviewers didn't pull punches, calling it cheap and ugly, and safety advocates had a field day pointing out its paper-thin construction. Yet, the 360's ultra-low price, simplicity, and oddball charm found an audience among students and city dwellers who just needed the basics and didn't mind a few stares. It never set sales records, but the Subaru 360 played an important role. It showed that Japanese automakers were willing to take risks, learn from their mistakes, and come back stronger. Today, the 360 is a rare curiosity, a reminder that automotive greatness often starts with the most unlikely experiments. 1975 Sebring-Vanguard Citicar. Long before Teslas were turning heads, there was the Sebring-Vanguard Citicar, a tiny wedge-shaped pioneer from the wild days of the 1970s. Born out of the oil crisis, the Citicar was America's answer to soaring gas prices. All electric, all plastic, and absolutely unapologetic about its oddball looks. It resembled a golf cart in a hurry, with bright colors, 2 seats, and plastic panels that wouldn't rust, but also wouldn't protect you much in a crash. The specs were as modest as its appearance. A 48-volt battery pack pushed the Citicar to a top speed of just 38 m/h, with a driving range hovering around 40 miles if you were gentle on the pedal and kind to the batteries. On paper, it was limited. In practice, it was downright brave. Parking was a breeze, fuel was just a plug away, and in an era of gas shortages, the Citicar seemed almost prophetic. Amazingly, nearly 4,500 Citicars found homes, making it the best-selling American EV of its era, a title it would hold until well into the 21st century. Today, the Citicar is more likely to be the butt of a joke than a collector's trophy, but there's something undeniably cool about how it dared to imagine a different kind of future. Boxy, slow, and plastic, yes, but also years ahead of its time. 1974 BMW 2002 Turbo. BMW 2002 Turbo is the stuff of legend, not just for its place in history, but for the way it seemed to arrive out of nowhere, punch everyone in the nose, and vanish just as quickly. Introduced in 1973, it was Europe's very first turbocharged production car. Visually, it was an instant attention grabber, fat fender flares, bold stripes, and the notorious 2002 Turbo logo written backward on the front spoiler so you'd read it clearly in your rearview mirror as it stormed past. Under the hood, a 2.0-liter turbocharged 4 made around 170 horsepower, a thrilling number for the era, especially in such a lightweight, compact car. But the driving experience was not for the faint of heart. Turbo lag was extreme. The engine felt sleepy, then suddenly exploded with power in a rush that could unsettle even seasoned drivers. It delighted enthusiasts, but worried insurance companies and lawmakers, especially with the oil crisis making fast cars a political target. Only 1,672 were ever built, and the 2002 Turbo disappeared from BMW's lineup almost as soon as it arrived. But it left a powerful legacy, proof that BMW could build cars with real attitude, and a template for every hot rod turbocharged coupe that followed. Today, it's rare, coveted, and still a little bit intimidating, a reminder that true icons aren't always born at the right time. There you have it. 15 of the strangest, wildest, and most overlooked cars of the 60s and 70s. Each one tells a story of daring, of failure, of what happens when creativity outruns common sense. Maybe you remember one, maybe you never knew they existed. Either way, these forgotten machines prove that the road to automotive greatness is paved with glorious misfits. Like, comment, and subscribe for more trips down the strangest lanes in automotive history.